Station 111, Station 111, we have a possible drowning in the Bow River west of Range Road 274. In the Bow River west of Range Road 274. Dispatch clear.
Station 111, acknowledge.
The mental disruption is greater than the physical disruption, simply because of the nature of the calls that we have. Because we go to nasty calls. And these folks are, that's part of the interview process that we go through. You can expect this to happen. It might happen on your first call. You might be here 10 years before you see this or something like this. But you're going to see this. And you're going to be involved in this high-stress situation, like this. If it's not this, it's like this. And when that happens, our station has a chaplain, which we're very fortunate to have, and he's completely independent. As a chaplain, he doesn't report to anybody. He doesn't report to me. He doesn't report to Chief Smith. He has his own authority to discuss and meet and talk about whatever we have firefighters that want to talk about. And he's our first link if a firefighter has a problem with a scene or a family problem, any mental type problem that causes our people stress. They're encouraged to talk to the chaplain.
Well, about 6 years ago, there was, I think there was 3 fatalities in car accidents of younger people here in the area. And as a church, we're just concerned how local firefighters were dealing with the death of people from the community. So I talked with Chief Wenstrom, is there any way that we could support firefighters? And through that conversation, started to talk about the possibility of me becoming a chaplain here at Station 111, and talked about that for a couple of months, and then I became a chaplain about over 5 years ago. You absolutely have to separate the two, and it's crucial. When I was being interviewed for being a firefighter, that was the question that one of the interviews asked me is, so when you come on a scene, who are you? A chaplain or a firefighter? So when I come on a scene, I'm a firefighter. And it's in the after the downtime, the quieter time, that the chaplain role may come into play. But when you first go, there's a scene, there's things that need to be taken care of, so you're 100% the firefighter. But then you start to observe things, and then perhaps when you're not busy, you slide into the chaplain role.
I've seen lots of terrible, terrible things, but mental health right now is at the forefront. The county is very supportive of mental health, and I'm lucky. I don't take that home with me unless it's little kids. When you see someone's partner who's passed away, the Christmas baking is all out, and someone dies 3 or 4 days before Christmas. Do you take that home with you? Maybe. But I'm lucky enough that unless it's little kids, it doesn't really affect me right now. That's not to say that it won't affect me later, but right now I'm lucky enough that no, it doesn't.
The challenge, particularly for the male species, for anyone who's not a male listening, is pride. We don't want to talk about difficult issues. We want to man up. So it's very difficult for someone to open up and talk. So the need is greater than the response. What I've told the firefighters here is each one of us should be looking for changes in behavior. So someone's normally extroverted and all of a sudden they're very quiet. They used to come early, now they come late. They used to come a lot of calls, now they don't come to very many. All of us should be looking for changes. And each one of us then is responsible, if that's our friend, that's someone we know well, to step in and say, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? So it isn't just me doing that. It is a team effort, and I never want anyone to think that you have to talk to the chaplain, because that's not comfortable for everybody. So anyone here is capable of being a support person, and if it needs to be bumped up, you can go to the peer support, you can go to psychologists. So it just depends on the degree of support that they need. Some of them are just gonna go out and they're gonna go to a hockey game and have a little chat, and that'll be what they need at that time.
I think we have a fairly robust health and safety program in general, just because of the county and the size and the number of employees that the county has. Fire services probably is half of the whole number of employees, and so we also have, through just being fire services, have set up our own support systems, supported by the county and funded to a great extent. So in Langdon we have a chaplain. That was an initiative, actually, grassroots initiative from the station, and that chaplain actually serves all of Rocky View County Fire Services. And then we have a critical stress management team, or a response team, and they're tied in, and they're involved with the province, so provincial level training. There's a specific call-out system for that. So at any time, whether it be a firefighter, a fire officer, a manager, if they feel that there's been a call or an issue, they are able to access that group of individuals.
The county has what's called a peer support network. So I'm one person on that team. So there are people from the different halls who've also been trained for supporting first responders. So we're a team. They have brochures, they've got ways they can contact. So they could contact anyone on this peer support network. Some guys would like to contact someone they know, some guys would like to contact someone they don't know. So there's a network that they can contact. There's also psychologists that the county has that they can contact.
Yeah, very supportive group. Like, I've never been part of an organization where you get support from absolutely everybody. It's actually more than a team, it's a family.
So we have guys that know how to watch for that stuff. We have tons of resources for dealing with it. And then the biggest thing is family life. We're instructed when we start to go home and tell our family signs and stuff like that of somebody who's maybe not dealing with something as well as they could be. And it's very important that you have a good support system at home.
After major incidents, we'll have a debrief. We'll talk about what went well, what didn't went well. People can provide some feedback or suggestions or questions that the officers or the chief will respond to afterwards. But yeah, no, it's good. So if anybody does have questions, we can resolve them. Again, without giving the full details of the situation, you talk about it just to air it out and then move on. So yeah, No, haven't been any situations that I've really struggled with where I've needed to talk to someone, but I do know, and that's one good thing about the fire hall is, and Rocky View, is that they do have services that you can reach out to should you need it.
So I have close friends who were qualified to be a support person for me. And I'm part of a provincial network of chaplains. So again, I have people that I can phone, email, who have been trained in doing what I do. So I do have a support network that I can rely on. We don't always know why someone quits, but in talking to guys who've been here a lot longer than I have, they would suggest that some have quit over traumatic events. Often if they're new on the fire department and they come onto a scene where there's one or more fatalities and they just weren't prepared for that, that's never been part of their journey. For some, they realize it's too much. It's not something that they want to do on their, part-time job. They've got enough stress in their full-time job and family. So that's just, they look at that as like, no, that's way too much. So for sure, some have stepped aside because some of the things we see are very difficult to see. So it's not for everybody, for sure.
There probably have been a couple that may have left for those reasons. And in some respects, you don't really know until you get into this what it's going to be like. When you go to your first motor vehicle accident where there's a fatality, that can be pretty gruesome. You don't really know what that's going to be like until you get there.
Like if I experience something for the first time, it might take 2 or 3 days or something like that, or I might be okay the second day, and then the third day it hits again and then it's gone. And then if I dealt with it more times, like say, CPR for something that hasn't gone the way it could go, or should go, if I've done CPR 10 times and it's unsuccessful, that's okay, I'm okay.
I just talk to my wife, I'd say, is how I get through it. I just discuss it with her, tell her what I'm feeling, and that's about it, though I've been fortunate enough that I haven't had any issues with mental health.
Their go-to would be one of each other. So they would talk to their, good friend here, someone they've been a firefighter with for a long period of time, and that's the level that they want to go to. So as long as they get support, that's what we're interested in.
I'll be honest, it's tough on the family sometimes. My kids are at that age where they don't want anything to do with mom or dad. So, but with the wife, it does affect our marriage a little bit, just because there's times where you're not home when you should be, or you're in the middle of a family dinner and you go. And if it's like a long scene, like there's been one scene where we were on 13 hours, and she called to make sure everything was good because she hadn't heard from me in a very long time. And you know what, my wife is very supportive, so she's understanding, but there's times where they get a little frustrated, or where she gets a little frustrated.
In the beginning, it's difficult. It is extremely difficult. We, through time, there's more and more support. So you lean on the folks that we talked about earlier, right? But certainly in the last decade or so, there's been more support mechanism, understood that it does impact people, and there's support within the organization. So, we've got a couple members that specialize in those types of post-serious incident support mechanisms. And then, of course, all the organizations have other methods to support those types of things on, where, situations are such that most of the team is impacted, right? Because everything that happens has some sort of impact on you. You do get seasoned somewhat. You see enough of it, you do get to accept, but generally I think what you have to do is interestingly enough, you have to be able to learn to distance from it.
He's definitely seen some things that people really shouldn't have to see in life. We talk about it. Having worked with fire services in the past, having an emergency management background. Some of the things that he tells me aren't all that shocking to me, but they probably would be to somebody else. But I think because we can talk about it, he's able to get that out and move on and move forward.
Nope, no injuries. It's actually driven me to go to the gym more. Like, I used to be a smoker, and then I quit about 3 years ago. It was tough. But you know what, coming in here, and then because it can be very physically demanding at times. So I'm like, you know what, I don't want to be that guy that can't do it.
I also work out too, like the guys are good here. Some of them help me in the gym and how to train and how to work out, and so I've been doing a lot of that, and it's gotten really good, a lot better. Cardio's gotten better, and so just improvements, like from where I was when I first started my municipal fire career in 2012 to now, big difference.
No, I gotta say, I think being on the fire department probably makes you a little fitter. It's a very physically demanding job.
No, I work out lots. The leading cause of death for firefighters right now is heart attacks. And that's not somewhere I wanted to be, so I do weights 4 times a week, and I do cardio 4 times a week.
You know, you need to be fairly well physically fit for this job. It's the vast majority of calls are not real strenuous, but certainly there's some that are. An actual structure fire, that is a very strenuous activity. You need to be in reasonably good shape to be able to do that safely, for your own safety and for the safety of your team members. So yeah, physical fitness is definitely important. When you first start here, we do require that people get a medical exam from a doctor, basically saying that you're physically able to do this job. Beyond that, at the paid per call stations, we don't really have an ongoing fitness program or evaluations. Like I say, you'll find out real soon on scene if you're not physically fit, and that's not good for anybody.
I can't remember if it was my very first call or one of the very first, like in my first week, is we actually had an airplane crash. On any call, you don't know what it's going to be like till you get there. And at that time, I was so inexperienced that, am I going to be able to do anything? Like, what if I do something wrong? Was all going through my head. For sure, there's always that in the back of my mind, what if I make a mistake? We are dealing with, serious issues, high risk situations. So there's always a little bit of that in my mind, like, what if I do this wrong? What if it gets someone hurt or whatever, right? What if it affects the patient? Like, what if we don't provide the best care that we can? That's always a small thought. But now that I've been on the department for a while, it's less about what could go wrong. It's more on the way to a call, especially, is what are we going to do right? Like, how are we going to fix this problem?
I've been to one motor vehicle collision that, it was my first motor vehicle collision that had an impact on me, and it bothered me for a couple weeks, and it was more about, what if that person, what's that person's family, how they dealing with the situation after this incident, and you don't know, you never know. That's also one of the challenging things is, if in the event that most of the time we can help people, but what if we can't? What's the ripple effects to those family members, and you never get that closure.
I took a course with the county on mental health, and one of the things that the guy told us with coping was, he said, if you do something positive after a bad call, you can expect a positive outcome. If you do something negative, you can expect a negative outcome. Anything that's positive is where I kind of focus my energy after a bad one.
Yeah, like knowledge and experiences really helps ease any sort of fears or anxiety. It all comes back to training.
The training kicks in, you do what you have to do, but we're all human. So when you do, and I've been on scenes where it is someone I know, and it makes you always try to do your best, but in those moments, I think you're trying even harder because you know this person and you want the result to be good for them. You want it to turn out well for them. And because we're community firefighters and many of the firefighters know people in the community, we're all going to be on scenes where it's someone we know. It's not uncommon for hugs to be part of what we're doing too, because there's that human connection. I've come in the door for medical scenes and I see who the homeowner is. I didn't know they lived in that house, and the first thing was a hug because they just felt so relieved that help was there and it's someone they know.
The most stress in the calls initially is the what of, and are you going to be able to meet the challenge type of thing, you know, like the thoughts that go through your head as you're starting to understand what the call's about and what you're going to be dealing with. But, you know, if you go back to what I said before, you're visualizing being able to help people and get them back to where they need to be when all's lost. It's not a good feeling, right?
You know what? It's been pretty good. Like, I've seen a lot of gruesome stuff already. And I've honestly figured it would affect me, but it hasn't. But we have a really good support group too, right? Like our chaplain, if we have issues with a scene or something, and even our fellow colleagues, we'll talk amongst each other. And
so it isn't just me doing that, but I am also watching for changes in behavior, and it can happen on a scene. It can happen here at the hall, or you know, we could go for coffee or whatever, but I would notice something and then I'm going to ask them if they're doing all right. And they may or may not be, and if they tell me they're doing fine, then that's as far as it's going to go. They have to want to talk.
I do take the job home with me in not as far as like the fire department's always on my mind. There's been the couple calls that you find yourself thinking about, you know, days, weeks after the incident. You know, you're just sitting there and you end up thinking about it. So I think that's unavoidable being on the fire department. You're gonna see something that you're not gonna be able to get out of your head. But as far as the majority of calls, I think I'm relatively good at detaching myself from situations. I mean, I get to go home to my wife and 3 kids, so.
Well, I enjoy what I do as a pastor. There's a lot of similarities. It's helping people in fire where, you know, someone has a bad day and we're called and we're helping people. So there's a lot of, and I do volunteer in the community too. So all of them have the common link of helping people. Balance comes in making sure I'm doing well mental health wise, and as long as I'm doing well, then we keep going. If I need to pull back a bit, then I need to pull back.